Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. Dr. Ann Creekmore joining us here from beautiful Richmond, Virginia, to talk more about the work she does as a psychologist. And she's also an author. There's a lot to her. Let me have her introduce herself. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello. Please introduce yourself, doctor.
Sure. I'm Dr. Ann Creekmore is my practice name, but my books are under AP Filosa. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist for many, many years, many decades. Won't say how many, right? And I'm here to help. I've written a book, and I have also a lot of MP3 CD products and some other books as well. But I've written a book called Love Yourself, Love Your Life, and it kind of summarizes all the main schools of thought in therapy or psychology, and it's kind of simplified, put in a friendly, user-friendly way so people can kind of
Wow.
Yeah, so trying to put my knowledge together to share.
There is so much to you. We're excited to have you here. And for those listeners, let me remind them, how do we contact you to start?
Well, my email, if you want to contact me that way, is Dr. Creekmore. It's just Dr. Creekmore, CREEKMORE, at hotmail.com. And no period, no cap or anything, just Dr. Creekmore. Or you can reach me. I have another one that but I'll tell, that's plenty for now. And then I have my phone number, a contact number, if you want to try to have a consult with me. It's 804-741-2608.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here. Let me start off. Obviously, there's so much to you, the work you do with workshops, but I think it's important to get to know you as a person first. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing, where you're from, and how you decided to go down the path of becoming a doctor to help all these people. It'd be great to hear a little bit of your backstory, if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, I don't know. I always had an interest in psychology. I mean, even in my early teens, I just, for fun, I would sit out, in the sun and sunbathe and and 13 and just be reading a glamour magazine, a teen thing, or reading Jung and Freud, Carl Jung and Freud. I was just really interested in psychology from an early age. So I wound up knowing that I wanted to get my doctorate and how long it would take to do that. So I kind of graduated from high school in 3 years and college in 3 years, and then started 2 weeks later up with my doctoral program, which I did finish in 4 years, which is pretty good because a lot of people sometimes with their dissertations go 10 years trying to get that darn thing done at the end. But I just always had a real interest in understanding people, helping people. And just want to understand the roots of different problems and how to help mankind. So I just kind of pursued it, and I've been doing it ever since.
Well, we're excited to have you here. And I know for today's show, you want to talk more about the self-fulfilling prophecy, for example, right? That's going to be our first chapter. The most effective, would you mind sharing with that? It's called CBT.
Correct. That's cognitive behavioral therapy. My book, as I mentioned, covers all the different types of therapy, but what's considered to be, and I do it in an eclectic approach. And sometimes during the podcast, I'm going to kind of try to run people through a few little exercises, or you, if you want to, do a little exercise, just to get an experience of them. But what's considered to be the most effective form of psychotherapy is called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. And that's the first chapter in my book, Love Yourself, Love Your Life, by AP Filosa. I'm just saying that because that's my author name. You won't find it under the name we're using, my practice name. But it basically means that our thoughts create. In a sense, like our thoughts are prayers, they're creating. And it's not so much what happens to us, the events that happen to us, but it's the self-talk that we say to ourselves that causes us to have the feelings we have, and then how we're going to behave, and then the outcome of things. And so the goal of this type of therapy is to help you to identify limiting beliefs or limiting negative self-talk and self-statements or about yourself or your world, so that you can change your feelings and then change how you would behave and then the outcomes of life situations. um, and it's kind of like if you have like a glass, say, of muddy water, and you take a clear pitcher of water and you start pouring it into this glass of muddy water. Well, all the mud is going to start flowing out, right? It's going to get overwhelmed, keep coming out, keep coming out. You keep pouring that pitcher of clear water into the glass, and eventually you're going to have a nice clear glass of pure water. And that's kind of like your mind, that when you let all those negative self-limiting beliefs out, then then you're going to be left with these clear, pure thoughts that are very, nourishing for you. And I can give you an example. For example, say two people get the exact same job performance evaluation. So let's say it's a written up one. These days it probably wouldn't be, and it's a good one, and it has just a couple of criticisms, in a couple things they can improve. And two different people get the exact same write up, and one person has higher self-esteem, and just their name's on it's the exact same one as the other ones, but they have higher self-esteem. They look at the good report, and then they see a few criticisms. They go, oh, their thought of it is, I'm smart, I'm capable, I can do that. We just maybe didn't communicate, or I'm new, it's a learning curve, I'll get this. And so how does that person feel, probably saying those things to themselves? That they have sort of a pep talk, right? They feel more positive. So then how would they behave? Probably good on the job. They're smart, they're capable, they can do it, they're feeling like given to the job. And then how do they probably do on the job? Probably well, because they're feeling positive and motivated. Now, say this another person who's got lower self-esteem is going to say negative things to themselves. Remember, it's not the event, it's not the job performance evaluation, it's what you say to yourself about the job performance evaluation that causes you to feel a certain way. Another person gets it, they don't have very good self-esteem. They see this good report, but they see these few criticisms on it, and they go, oh no, I'm a loser, I'm a failure, they're going to fire me. So how does that person feel? Same event, different self-talk. That person feels, depressed. They feel discouraged. So how do they behave? They might have an attitude. They may like, well, these people don't like me here, and they've got an attitude. Or they may think, well, why even try? They're just going to fire me anyway. So they get, they're not productive. Or maybe they get anxious. They try to do well, but they're all over the place, anxious about things. They're making mistakes because they're thinking they're going to get fired, So none of that works out when you use the self. So their job performance obviously is not going to be as good as a person who is being a friend to themselves. So the idea is, and it's in the first chapter, it's got a handout even, at how to stop your negative thoughts. That what you do is if you have a negative thought or limiting belief, you basically have to thought stop. One therapist actually put a little rubber band on your wrist. Don't hurt yourself. Just give it a ping if you start saying negative things to yourself. So then if you wouldn't say it to a friend or family member, you're not allowed to say it to yourself. You're supposed to stay and be a friend to yourself. So then put the opposite and put an affirmation in. Like in this case, you can say, oh, I'm smart, I'm capable, I can do those things. It's a learning curve. I like challenges, I can do that. And then you can pat yourself on the back for doing that. Because people, if you compliment yourself for doing something, you're more likely to do it again. People work for rewards. So if you catch your negative thought and you're putting in the positive, then you say, hey, good job. And you're more likely to do it again, because we tend to be negative thinkers. And it may be when you start this process that you have to do it 300 times a day. You're going to catch yourself saying negative things to yourself that you're going to have to stop and put the positives in. But maybe if you keep doing it in a week, it'll be down to 50 or 15 times a week. It becomes more of a habit. So that, in a nutshell, is a very simplified version of cognitive behavioral therapy.
Interesting. All right. So if you are just tuning in, we got to remind everyone, doctor, who we're talking to and the best forms of contact.
Yes, my books are under AP Filosa. My practice name is Ann F. Creekmore, licensed clinical psychologist, and my number is 804-741-2608 if you'd like to get a consult, or my email is drcreekmore, all lowercase, at hotmail.com. That's CREEKMORE, DR.
Wow. So you have over 40 years experience as a licensed clinical psychologist. So clearly you're passionate about your career. I could tell. Could I just ask you what's the most rewarding part of your job, would you say?
Well, I just, like they say, if you like your job, you'll never work a day in your life. And I feel that way. I mean, always, it's some people think like, well, how can you handle these people's problems, or doesn't it depress you if they have these problems? But what it doesn't do that, because I'm able to help them. If they feel better when they leave, or they feel some relief, then I'm really happy. So it's about just helping people. That's all I'm really interested in, is helping people and trying to help them to get to the roots of their problems and be able to be motivated to make the changes. And when they get they're more happy and fulfilled, then I'm happy and fulfilled.
Oh, that's great. Well, we appreciate you. We're glad that you're here joining us and talking, obviously, about the work you're doing and how you can help people. And by the way, what states are you licensed to work in?
I'm licensed to work only in Virginia. Um, but that doesn't mean that I can't do, I think that doesn't mean that you can't provide consult to whoever. It's just, unfortunately, insurance would only be covered for people in Virginia.
Perfect. All right. Well, I know you're into obviously helping people, seeing them be happy, as we just discussed. We're going to talk more about those root problems and how a lot of people maybe just don't have the coping skills and techniques. So, hence, you come into play here. Do you want to share a little bit more about the work that you're doing? And, would love to find out more about your fusion of this positive psychology with the 7 schools of thoughts. There's so much to your notes. So, I'll let you run the show. It is your show, Dr. Ann. Go ahead.
Well, that's just kind of like a summary of my
Yeah.
book. In a sense, each chapter of the book covers a different type of therapy, and I thought maybe we would do a different one each week, and including client-centered therapy, which is like there's a focusing inward processes. You can kind of like pull the straw off the camel's back, so to speak, by just kind of laying out your problems as boxes, in a sense, labeled, and then picking the one that's the worst and getting to your feelings about it, and what to bring that to why it's bothering you and how to heal, find a positive, solid, constructive solution from going from facing a negative feeling, but taking it to the positive solution, and then rewarding yourself for carrying it out when you get a relief feeling. That's kind of the second chapter, called Focusing Inward. It's a client-centered form of therapy by Genlin. Eugene Genlin originated it. They used to actually have a movement where you could have partners, and do this process, a step-by-step process, and you kind of have your partner be asking these questions to help you get to why you're feeling so overwhelmed and anxious, and then come into a positive solution. And then when you finish, they switch off, and the other partner would help another person. They actually had it going for a while. But there's also psychodynamic therapy and internal family systems, both that go into healing emotional wounds of the past. Basically, in my book on page 22, I have a feeling chart. I call it the iceberg analogy, where you can see in an iceberg, you see the tip of the iceberg only, you see the ice at the top of the water, but really there's a lot of deeper ice underneath, and that's what really causes the problem, right? If there was a ship that was going into it or something. So with the iceberg analogy, the tip is a feeling chart, where the tip of it is anger, we all kind of can get in touch with our anger or some kind of anger, annoyance or irritation or, rage or whatever it is. But really, we can't do much with anger. We have to kind of ask ourselves to go below the anger and find out, if what we're feeling underneath that we can actually heal. Anger is kind of like a signal that there is some sort of emotional distress that we need to go below for our emotional survival. Kind of like hunger is a physical signal that we need to nourish ourselves for our physical well being. So if we can get below the anger, just use it as a cue or as something to give us a little energy to do something. And then we ask ourselves, what's below the anger? Am I feeling sad about something? I've got some loss, some grief, some hurt, disappointment, rejection, or I have the whole list on page 22 in the book. So it's easy to kind of look at the columns and think of things if you can't think of them off the top of your head. Then there's the afraid side, some fear. Are you, feeling afraid of something or overwhelmed or apprehensive or insecure or scared of something? So if you can go below the anger and then figure out what the feelings are below, then you have a better chance of figuring out, well, what will make it better? I mean, if you're feeling, if you're having grief, it may need to go through the grieving process, not say stuck at the anger, which is the third phase of grief, actually. But, which a lot of people do stay kind of stuck, but it's normal to get angry when you're grieving. Um, but I guess I can mention there are 5 phases of grief. You've got the initial shock, disbelief, numb. Then you've got a lot of people put anger second. I put it third, but you got bargaining, which is kind of thinking about things like, well, this didn't happen or that did happen. Then, then it's almost like that somehow the loss won't occur, which it will, it did, and that's not, but you're thinking through kind of avoiding feelings. And then the third phase, as I put it, is your anger. People get angry at, they can get angry at anything. They angry at the doctor or the person who left to abandon them or God, or them. They can turn the anger in on themselves. That's why there's a lot of fights, between family members at the time when there's a loss and there's grief. They're going through their anger phases. But you can turn it in on yourself and have guilt about something. But you don't want to stay stuck there. You just want to recognize it's okay to have those feelings, and it's normal to have those feelings and to go back and forth, maybe numb to bargain to anger to numb and so on. But what you're really trying to do is get to sad. You're trying to get the mourning out, because underneath it all, the worst of it is you're feeling really sad about the loss. And you need to grieve and cry. There's like about 90 toxins in sad tears compared to 10 in happy tears. So when we're crying and grieving, we're really releasing toxins, chemicals, physical and emotional cleansing is occurring. So when we do enough of that and keep getting lighter and getting that out, that's when we can get to the 5th phase, which is the acceptance phase. Is when you start to feel, okay, now accept it. I feel some peace.
Feeling a little better, right?
Exactly. And it just comes and you start to get into that. And even positive, good things are coming back, some memories, happy thoughts or things you've learned. And that's when you're really ready to move into rebuilding. But if you just stay stuck at anger, you stay stuck at the early ones, you don't get through, you're not really rebuilding. You're rebuilding, but on what they call pathological or aborted mourning. You haven't really mourned and gotten it out, and so you're not really ready to be coming from a place of peace and moving into your good then. So I'm not sure exactly how I got into the whole thing on that. I know we were talking about focusing inward, but that was just one example of when, sometimes we think when something's bothering us that we want to, talk to somebody or tell somebody, express something. And half the time it might be we find when we focus inward, the worst thing is that we're being triggered. Some grief is triggered, and we just need to work through our grief, not express it at somebody. Or, we may just need a nap. The worst is we may be super tired. It's hard to know when you use a focusing inward process of what was really going to make you take that straw off the camel's back, so to speak, where what was the worst thing at this moment really bothering me? If I can change that, then all that overwhelmed feeling is gonna go away, and you can just do what you need to do to feel peace.
Beautiful. Well, we just have 3 minutes left in this show. So, Dr. Creekmore, how did you kind of want to sum things up for today for our first show together?
Oh, just want to say thank you for having me, letting me share what I've learned with my clients and fellow, colleagues and so on over the helping professionals over the years, and be able to share this with people. And I hope it really helps.
Well, we appreciate your time here, being here for us. And let's remind everyone, of course, how they can contact you.
Yes, my email is drcreekmore@hotmail.com, and my phone is 804-741-2608.
Perfect. Thank you
And
so
thank you so
much.
much.
No, pleasure having you here, getting to know you. And thanks so much for enlightening all of us today. Looking forward to the next time we get to connect for interview number 2. Is that next week?
Correct.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, great. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. You have a great day
You
and
too.
evening and morning, wherever you're listening in the world. And we're looking forward to the next time. All right. Have a great day,
Me
everyone.
too.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.